A legacy of war, the father's truth. The midday sun hung high in the pastel sky, illuminating a tapestry of gently rolling fields and shimmering leaves. The Stellarin homeworld, with its delicate hues and fragrant breezes, exuded a quiet grace. Long ago, this land had borne witness to peace and prosperity, but it had also known war, a time that few dared to speak of openly. Now, in a quiet clearing near the family home, an older Stellarin approached his son, who played in the warm light as if nothing else mattered. The father's steps were silent and purposeful, his centuries of life manifesting in each controlled movement. Though ancient by human standards, several centuries old, he carried himself with the elegance of youth, his limbs moving with an economy of motion that masked his age entirely. "Child," he called softly, his voice resonating with gentle warmth. "What game are you playing?" He approached the boy, who danced in the grass with a toy sword gripped firmly in slender fingers. The boy looked up, eyes bright, cheeks flushed with excitement. "I'm playing war, father!" the boy exclaimed, breathless and delighted. He swung his wooden sword with a flair that would have impressed even the greatest human acrobats. There was pride in the child's posture, and the father remembered a time when he, too, had thought such games innocent, heroic, and grand. A flicker of unease passed over the father's features. He stilled himself, forcing calm. The child's enthusiasm was so pure, so unspoiled by reality. But the father knew better. He had lived through times the boy could not imagine. He had seen horrors that made mock battles under the sun seem like cruel jokes. "War," the father repeated quietly. "Such a serious game for one so young." The wind rustled the leaves overhead, and somewhere a bird sang, indifferent to the weight of the conversation unfolding. "I will join the League of Warriors when I'm old enough," the boy announced with unshakable conviction. "I'll fight the humans, push them back from the rim worlds, just as you did. I'll make them regret ever challenging us. The council says we nearly drove them off last time. Next time, we'll finish the job." Hearing these words, the father felt an unexpected trembling in his knees, as if the very earth had shifted beneath him. A lump formed in his throat, terror's icy claws gripping his heart. Those were the council's words, not the truth. The council that told half-truths and pretty lies to keep the younger generations eager for glory. He knew the council's stories of heroism were a veneer, a delicate tapestry designed to mask a reality of desperate struggle and shameful defeat. The boy noticed his father's sudden pallor. Concern replaced his playful grin. "Father?" the child asked, lowering his toy sword. "Are you unwell? Shall I call mother or the healers?" His voice was tinged with worry. Seeing his father stagger, he took a step forward, extending a small hand. The older Stellarin inhaled deeply, steadying himself. He must tell the truth, no matter how painful. "Sit with me, my son," he said, gesturing to a fallen log at the clearing's edge. The bark glowed faintly in the sunlight, each groove holding a memory of time's passage. This spot, once a place of laughter, would become a stage for a tale long suppressed. "I will tell you a story about my days fighting humans, long before I met your mother, before you were even a thought in our minds. A true story, unlike what the Grand Council recites." The child blinked in confusion. "But father, the council says we won great victories and performed valiant deeds. They say the humans started the war, that they sought to finish what they began when they drove us, the Duerfine, and the Oroke from the homeworld. The council says we struck back heroically." The father sighed, shoulders heavy with memory. "The council tells lies, my child. Lies I once believed myself. They say humans are weak and cowardly, that we are superior in cunning and might. They never speak of what truly happened. Listen well, for I will never lie to you." The boy frowned, struggling to reconcile his father's words with what he'd learned. The father placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. The council claims humans started the last war, that they attacked our worlds first. But that's false. We began the war. We sought to expand our dominion, to retake worlds we felt were ours by ancestral right. I was there. I remember it all. His gaze drifted to the horizon, where memories older than the boy's lifetime awaited retelling. We gathered our finest warriors on 3 worlds, Vilson, Gilia, and Terrenial. These names, now whispered with reverence and regret, were the places we assembled vast armies. I was born on Terrenial. You should have seen it in those days. 20,000 of our best, arrayed in gleaming armor, protected by force fields and armed with lances and bows of incredible workmanship. We were confident, arrogant even. Another 50,000 warriors would soon join from Vilson and Gilia, bolstering our ranks to an unstoppable force. We planned to strike at the human world called Lee's World. The child's eyes widened. Lee's World? He repeated, trying to imagine it. The council said humans lack creativity, even naming their world simply. They mocked the humans for it. Indeed, we mocked them, belittled their perceived simplicity, the father said softly. We thought ourselves unmatched. We believed that with our technology and speed, no race traveled faster in space or fought with more grace on the ground. We attacked Lee's World, expecting an easy victory. Initially, we encountered only a token garrison. We struck hard and fast, capturing outposts and villages. After a week, we declared the world pacified. We were fools. A hush fell between them. The father picked up a twig and broke it in half, as if symbolizing the fracture in their understanding. My son, did you know that every human can fight if they must? Not just their nobles or their trained warriors, but their farmers, scientists, shopkeepers, everyone can learn. Their short lives push them to adapt swiftly. Within a week, a human youth can become a passable warrior. Their weapons are designed not for elegance, but for ease of use. Anyone can wield them effectively. The boy's lips parted in disbelief. He tried to imagine a race where every member could be a soldier. Stellar and warriors trained for decades, even centuries, perfecting their combat arts. The father nodded at his son's astonishment. Yes, a human child, a third your age in human reckoning, could fight toe-to-toe with a lesser Oroke warrior. Humans are prolific and resourceful. Unlike us, who struggle to have a single child every few decades, humans can have multiple offspring in a short span, replenishing their ranks rapidly. Silence stretched. A gentle breeze carried the scent of distant flowers. 2 months after we thought we'd conquered Lee's World, the father continued, the human counterattack began. A massive fleet emerged into orbit. We were stunned by their numbers. We had maybe 70,000 warriors total, a proud force by our standards. The humans landed not 100,000, not 200,000, but millions of soldiers, millions, my son. Over 6 million, by the most conservative estimate I dared believe. The child gasped. The father saw terror and awe reflected in his young eyes. They trained for total war. Their artillery thundered relentlessly. Their strategy was unlike ours. We cherished honorable, one-on-one combat. They viewed that as folly. They attacked supply lines, sabotaged resources, spread vermin-bearing plagues we couldn't resist. They sniped from afar, used drones, never giving us a fair fight. Honor didn't matter, victory did. To them, war was practical, not a stage for valor. The father closed his eyes, recalling the screams, the flashes of laser fire that lit the atmosphere like a false dawn. He remembered comrades cut down by relentless waves of human soldiers. Our technology was advanced. Our shields could withstand a laser or two, but 100 beams converging could overload them instantly, turning a proud warrior into ash in a heartbeat. We were overwhelmed. Our arrogance and traditions were useless against a foe that fought with logic, cunning, and sheer numbers. He paused, voice faltering. We didn't drive humans from our worlds. They drove us from theirs. The Council's tales of valiant last stands and final assaults are distortions. In reality, we were forced to concede defeat. The humans accepted bribes, technology, and even some of our people as labor to leave us be. I was imprisoned, a handful of survivors left to bear witness. That's where I met your mother, who was also captured, and in that dark time, we found love. You, my son, are one of the few good things born of that tragedy. The child sat very still, absorbing each revelation. He looked pale, as if someone had stolen the innocence from his eyes. But father, why does the council lie? Because the truth humiliates them, the father answered gently. They want new generations to maintain hatred for humans, to be willing to fight again one day, hoping for a different outcome. They fear that if we know how easily humans crushed us, we'll lose our martial spirit. They spin lies so that young ones, like you, dream of glory rather than understand the grim reality of war. The boy trembled, tears gathering in his eyes. You mean all those stories of valor, all those heroic songs are false? Not entirely. Some small acts of bravery did occur, but they omit the defeats, the slaughter, and the humans' overwhelming response. They never tell you about the millions who landed like a rain of death, or how we were outmaneuvered at every turn. They don't tell you that we started the war, that we gambled on a quick victory and ended up losing almost everything. The child looked at his toy sword. Moments ago, it seemed a symbol of future greatness. Now it felt like a cheap trinket, a lie in wood and paint. He placed it down slowly, his little shoulders sagging with the weight of new understanding. Father, he said quietly, what should I do then? If not fight the humans, whom should I fight? A bittersweet smile touched the father's face. Why fight at all, my child? I know the Council's propaganda calls for eternal vigilance against humans. I know your friends boast about joining the League of Warriors. But must we define ourselves by war? The humans showed us that if we provoke them, they respond with unimaginable force. Perhaps we should focus on other conflicts more manageable, the orcs, the dwarfine, species we understand better, or better yet, strive for peace. The galaxy is vast. We can find a role not defined by conflict alone. The boy sniffed, wiping a tear from his cheek. But what of honor, father? What of defending our worlds? Honor can take many forms, the father said softly. Honor is not just in killing or conquering. Honor can be in protecting life, seeking truth, and building a future that doesn't repeat past mistakes. You must know that humans are not monsters without reason. They were once pushed off their homeworld, forced to wander. We tried to seize their territory, and they responded with a total war that shattered our arrogance. If we provoke them again, we might face worse. The father rose, offering his hand to his child. Do you see now why I staggered? Why terror gripped my heart when you spoke of making war upon humans? I lived that nightmare. I saw honorable warriors cut down in droves, heard their screams echo in my memory for centuries. I cannot let you blindly follow the Council's lies. I love you too much to let you run headlong into such horror. The child took his father's hand and stood. He looked smaller, more solemn, as if he had aged years in a single afternoon. I understand, he said quietly. I'm confused and hurt, but I trust you more than the Council. I don't want to die in vain. I don't want to be a pawn in their schemes. The father nodded, relief mingling with sorrow in his chest. He'd broken the boy's illusions, but at least the truth would guide him to a safer path. In time, you'll form your own opinions. For now, remember that war is not a game, and that stories told by those who seek to control us can hide devastating truths. They walked back toward their home, leaving the sunlit clearing and its deceptive serenity behind. The father's thoughts drifted to the future. Would the boy accept this truth and chart a different course, one rooted in knowledge and caution rather than hatred and bravado? He hoped so. The father's own generation had learned too late. Maybe this child, forewarned and enlightened, would avoid repeating their ancestors' folly. Back inside their modest home, a structure blending graceful architectural lines with living materials that shimmered gently, the boy looked at his father, searching for reassurance. The father knelt, placing both hands on his son's shoulders. "My dear child," he said softly, "I know this is hard. The council's tales are comforting illusions. We were heroes, the humans were devils. But reality is more complicated. They are not devils, merely people with their own fears and ambitions. They fight not for cruelty's sake, but for survival and prosperity, just as we do." The boy nodded, though a cloud lingered in his eyes. "Will we ever face them again?" he asked. "Will there be another war?" The father sighed heavily, recalling secret rumors and shifting alliances whispered in the halls of power. "I cannot say. The council might still dream of reclaiming lost worlds or avenging their pride. There are voices among our people who yearn for another chance, convinced that we can do better next time. But I know what I saw, and I fear that if we provoke humans again, we risk utter annihilation. They are too many, too adaptable." He rose and moved to the hearth, where a gentle bioluminescent vine provided soft illumination. "Maybe your generation can seek knowledge, trade, or diplomacy instead. Maybe you can help guide our people toward wiser courses. The galaxy holds wonders beyond just battles. We can build ships to explore, we can create art, solve riddles of science and magic. Must we always define ourselves by bloodshed?" The child listened, shoulders relaxing. He picked up his toy sword again, but this time he inspected it thoughtfully, as if seeing it for the first time. The carving was rough, the edges dull. It represented a childish fantasy of war's glory. Now that fantasy lay shattered at his feet. "Father," he said softly, "I want to learn more about humans. The real humans, not the council's tales. I want to understand why they are so strong and numerous, why their weapons are so easy to use, why their armies are so vast." The father smiled slightly. "Curiosity is good. Understanding an old enemy is wiser than blindly hating them. Humans excel at mass production, standardization, and training anyone to fight. Their short lives drive them to accomplish much in little time. They compensate for their lack of magic with science, numbers, and cunning. They may lack our elegance, but their brute practicality wins wars." The boy nodded, absorbing these details. "Then, is it wrong that I admired the idea of becoming a warrior and fighting humans?" The father shook his head. "No, it's not wrong to admire courage or skill. But understand what real war entails: suffering, loss, and cruelty. Heroism without context is just a pretty word. True heroism might mean preventing war, safeguarding innocence, or healing wounds instead of inflicting them. You can still be brave and honorable, but direct your strength wisely." A quiet respect passed between them. The father felt relief that his son might avoid the fate of those who marched to Lee's world unprepared. He remembered comrades who had boasted about human weakness, who laughed as they polished armor and sharpened blades, imagining easy victories. Their laughter turned to screams when faced with human artillery and endless reinforcements. If he could spare his son that trauma, he would consider this painful confession worthwhile. Outside, the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with pastel colors reminiscent of distant nebulae. The father stood, guiding his son toward their door. Before entering, the child paused. "Father, you said you were imprisoned. Did you speak to any humans?" The father's gaze drifted. "Yes, I did. One human guard, seeing my despair, tried to explain their perspective. She said they never wanted to fight us. They defended what they saw as their rightful territory. To them, we were the aggressors. She pitted us, in her own stern way, for relying on ancient honor codes, while they had moved on, embracing merciless efficiency. She said, we learned to fight not because we wanted war, but because we had to survive in a harsh galaxy. That stayed with me. The child digested this, turning it over in his mind. So they are not evil, just different? Exactly, said the father. They can be cruel, just as we can. They can show mercy, just as we can. They feared us, and we feared them. Fear leads to violence. Perhaps understanding can break that cycle. Inside the home, the mother waited, sensing the gravity of their conversation. The father exchanged a silent look with her. She knew the burdens he carried from that war. The mother took the child's hand and asked, "What did your father tell you?" The boy looked up at both parents, a new seriousness in his eyes. "He told me the truth about the war with humans. That it wasn't as the council claims. That we started it, and the humans responded with overwhelming force. That we lost many warriors, and that humans are not weak or stupid, but very dangerous." The mother nodded, sadness flickering in her gaze. "Your father has chosen honesty, even though it hurts. I hope you understand how much he loves you, to share such a painful truth." The boy pressed close to both parents, feeling their warmth. He realized that love in this household meant telling difficult truths. Perhaps the council believed it was protecting them by lying, but lies only set one up for a shock when reality strikes. "I think I understand," the boy said softly. He still felt uneasy, but at least now he had a foundation based on truth, not on propaganda. He would grow up wary of easy narratives and false heroics, perhaps even diplomatic. He might grow into a leader who could steer his people away from repeating ancient mistakes. The father watched his son, relief mingled with a lingering ache. He had passed a torch of truth to the next generation. Maybe the truth would help reshape their people's destiny, preventing another doomed campaign for pride or revenge. He hoped so, and in that hope lay a quiet redemption for the horrors he'd witnessed centuries past. As dusk settled, the family moved deeper into their home, lights dimming to gentle bioluminescence. In the silence, only the distant hum of a wind chime could be heard, an artifact from a time before war, before lies. The father reflected on how easily illusions crumble when tested by real experience. He had chosen to share his scars, trusting that his son, armed with knowledge, would choose a better path than war. In that quiet, in the gentle hush of the stellar evening, the father embraced the mother, and the boy clutched his toy sword less eagerly now. The future remained uncertain. Humans and Stellarin might cross paths again, but at least one child would not charge blindly into battle crying vengeance. He would carry the weight of history, forging his own understanding and perhaps, in time, fostering peace in a universe too often ruled by conflict. And so, the story ended not with a rousing call to arms, but with a call to reflection, an ending that was no end at all, but a tender beginning of wisdom, and the awakening of a child's mind to the complexities that lie beyond simple tales of heroism and hate.